for your domain, you should list in order, and I just choose to use a bracket, -2, -1, 0 and 0, but I'm going to just list 0, 1, and then 9. Okay, so what would the range be then? The smallest one is -8, -6, -5, 6, and 9. Okay. I didn't ask you this, but is this a function, yes or no? No, 0 is the problem there? Okay. So then the domain for this one, -8, 1, 10. Already I can tell this isn't a function because I see repeated x values, right? The range would be -6, -5, -4, 1, 2. Okay. So you already know how to find the domain and range if I give you ordered pairs. Today we're going to work on finding the domain and range of a graph. And we're going to describe that. We're going to learn some ways to describe that. So here's the domain. Remember how I said the domain is x value? On a graph, are x values horizontal or vertical? Horizontal. And so when you're doing the domain, what you want to think about is where the graph exists from left to right. Where the graph exists from left to right. And then we're going to learn some ways to describe it, because we can't list all of the points. If you have a graph of something, there's like an infinite number of points. We can't list them all. So, all right. So what do you think about range then? If domain is where the graph exists from left to right, range would be where the graph exists from, yeah, I'm going to actually go from bottom to top, okay? But you're right, Abby, you're looking at up, down, from bottom to top. Okay, so then we have this thing, and actually this is a little new, but it ends up, usually most students end up liking this better. We have this thing called interval notation, and when we use interval notation, we're going to either use a parentheses, and a parentheses means that it is less than and greater than. Or we're going to use these brackets, and we're going to use those when we're using the symbols less than or equal to and greater than or equal to. Okay, so for parentheses, it's less than, greater than, bracket, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Okay, so then, would you draw a line in your paper? When you're doing an interval notation for domain, what I list is I list the furthest to the left, comma, to the right. So I'm going to say, hey, it starts here and it ends here. Or maybe it doesn't end, and then we're going to talk about how I write that. And when I'm going to write my range, I am going to say, hey, where does it start at the bottom and how far does it go to the top? So I'm going to write bottom, comma, top. So would you look at our first example? I'm going to show you both with inequality symbols and interval notation. You can do either or on your homework tonight. Okay. So it looks like a semicircle. Agreed? Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's look left to right at the graph. X values now, okay? From left to right, where does the graph begin? -5. Where does the graph end? 5. So would you agree that X is between -5 and 5 and including it? Okay. So we would describe that like this. As an inequality, we would write X is greater than or equal to -5, less than or equal to 5. And then, because I can't list every ordered pair, it's a whole curve. I can't go and list every single ordered pair there. There's no way I could do it. So I describe it. The X values are from -5 to 5. If I wanted to write that as an interval, what I would do is, because I used these, I would use a bracket, and I'd write the left first, so the left was -5, comma, to 5. Left to right. Okay. So now, Alex, if you were looking at the Y values, if I'm going from the bottom to the top, where does the graph start on the bottom? What Y value? So if I wanted to look at where my hand is, I'm saying, hey, there's a semicircle. Where does it start on the bottom, and where does it end on the top? What do you think, Brad? What's that? He says 0, because from here it's 0 and it ends at 5. Very nice. So now instead of X equals, we're going to write Y. And interval notation is greater than equal to 0 and is less than or equal to 5. So that's how I'd write it in inequality notation. And then in interval notation, I would write 0, comma, 5. Bottom, comma, top. Bottom, comma, top. That's how I do range with interval. So when you're doing an interval, you need to know what you're talking about, right? Because if I said it was domain, it's left, right, but if it's range, it's bottom, top. So make sure you're telling me domain or range, because otherwise I don't know which one I'm looking at. Okay. Let's look at the next one. This is a line. What do those arrows mean? The line goes on forever. Okay, so if I was drawing this line, that means I go right, and then I keep going. Okay, so you guys tell me what you think here. From left to right, where does the graph start? Or where does it exist from left to right? Does it start somewhere? But it goes forever. Both directions. So does it ever end? No. Okay, so what that means is the domain is everything. Everything left to right. So the way we would describe that is in interval notation, we'd say from -infinity to positive infinity. Doesn't infinity mean going on forever? Okay. By the way, another way in math, I'm going to teach you something new today, is we could say that this was all real numbers. All numbers. There is a symbol for that, and it looks like an R with 2 downstrokes. That is the symbol for all real numbers. If you would like to write that for all real numbers, that is fine. So we can do this in interval notation then, except am I going to use a bracket or a parentheses now? What kind of symbol? I'm going to use a parentheses, and here's why. Does it ever really get to -infinity? No. So it doesn't touch there, so we write left to right, negative infinity, comma, to positive infinity. Close the bracket. Hey, now let's look at range. Those arrows go also up and down forever. Agreed? So isn't this going to be the same thing for range? But it's not x anymore. What is it? Y. So I'm going to write negative infinity is less than y is less than positive infinity. Or what symbol can I write? That R thing, all real numbers. I'll write or. So you know that you don't have to write both of those things. And in interval notation, it's going to look the same, except it means this time bottom to top. Alrighty, so let's try some more. Would you do a couple things for me, guys? Just so we realize, at the top of this parabola, would you draw arrows indicating that they're going off to the right and left and up forever? And at this sideways parabola, would you also draw arrows? Alrighty. Let's go left to right. Let's look here. I'm going to look at the graph from left to right. I put some markers on there. That's left to right. Can somebody tell me, where does the graph exist from left to right? -2 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so here we go. As an inequality, we'd write -2. Is the graph touched too? Like, is it touching there?
Like not
yeah, it's on. It is. Is it on -2?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Then I'm going to do an or equal to, if the graph is on there, and then to 6. All right. Who wants to try interval notation then? Tell me first of all, bracket or parentheses? Bracket. What made you choose that, Abby?
Every time we did, like, I guess, I don't know, I just used it.
When we use the less than or equal to,
Yeah.
we use a bracket, and if
Yeah.
it's just less than or greater than, we use a parentheses. Okay. And these ones were or equal to, so we're going to write bracket. And then what's the first number I'm going to write? -2, comma, 6. Okay. All right, so now range. Where am I going to look? Bottom to top. So here we go. Bottom to top. Y values. Cody, what do you think?
0 to -8.
So let's list the bottom first.
Oh, -8.
-8. Good. Is less than or equal to y is less than or equal to 0. That's how I'd write it as an inequality. And then, Cody, should I use a bracket to start? Okay. And then I write -8, comma, 0, and another bracket, because that circle actually rests on 0 and it rests on -8. Would you try the next one on your own? If you don't feel ready yet, then just at least try in your head describing the numbers, and then I'll write it down in a second. Alright. This actually is one that goes from negative infinity to positive infinity, because what these arrows are doing, they're not just going up, but you see how they're going out as well. And so this graph is gonna, if I were to like zoom way out, if I had like a screen and I just zoom out, as I kept zooming out, it would keep going left and right, and it would keep going up. And so I write negative infinity to infinity. And that's how I would write it as an interval. So for bottom to top, this graph doesn't go down by negative infinity, does it? Where does it start? 0, but then it goes up forever. So I would write 0 less than or equal to y, because it does touch at 0, less than infinity. So I would do bracket 0, comma, infinity, and then a parenthesis. All right, last one. What do you think for domain? Anybody think they got it? Go ahead, Cody. 3 to... What do the arrows mean? You're right. So 3 to infinity.
Yeah.
That's how I'd write it as an interval, right? 3 to infinity. And then wouldn't you say x is greater than or equal to 3? Technically, can you put less than infinity? Sure, but you don't need to. That describes it, okay? And very, very slowly, these arrows are going up forever and down forever. So how would we describe the range then? Riley? So I'm going to write for my interval negative infinity, comma, to positive infinity, and that means bottom to top. And an inequality, I can write it like this. You always also have the option of writing all real numbers. Like if I'm going to go back up here, you could also write like that, so you understand that it's everything or all real numbers, or this one too, all real numbers.